Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today for a conversation around accounting technology trends. My name is Shannon Canzanella, and I'm with Accounting Seed, the #1 accounting solution built on Salesforce. And I'm going to be your host for our conversation today. So back in January, we published a piece about the technology trends to watch for this year. And now that we're a few months in, I wanted to get back together with the Accounting Seed team to share what we're actually seeing in the market and where reality is matching or even surprising some of the predictions that we made. So we'll go ahead and pop a link to that piece in the chat just so you can follow along with it. We're not going to get to every single trend today, so we definitely encourage you to take a peek at that blog. But before we dive into our conversation, some introductions are in order. I want to introduce our panelists to you. We have Ben here with us. Ben is on our solutions engineering team. So he's talking to folks like you guys on a daily basis and demoing the Accounting Seed platform. He's got a front row seat to what finance teams are actually asking for, what they're struggling with, where they're getting stuck. So we're really excited to have his experience and expertise here today. So thank you, Ben. We also have Mary. Mary is our VP of product, and she brings over 30 years of experience in the accounting space. So you're getting a wealth of knowledge from Mary. She is also deeply connected to our customers and the broader market. So she's really bringing that what's working in practice perspective today. So thank you, Mary. Thank you both for being here today. Before we dive into our questions, I want to just get ahead of some of our frequently asked questions as well. Number one, this session is being recorded. Do not worry, you will get a copy of this session within about 48 hours to your email, so keep an eye out for that. We also will have a few polls throughout our session today. It's just our way to hear from you and to keep this a little bit interactive. We will also have a Q&A at the end. So on your side of the screen, you should be able to see a little question mark symbol. Click on that and add in any thoughts, questions that you might have, and we'll try to get to as many of those as we can at the end. And lastly, I want to point out the handout section for today. We will have a copy of the slide deck, but also there is a copy for you there of our latest industry report for the state of AI in accounting. And we're going to be referencing a lot of that data today. So be sure to download all that great information that's here at your disposal. All right, let's get into it. So earlier this year, after we published our trends piece, we surveyed over 100 CFOs, controllers, finance team members to get a real picture of where finance teams stand with AI. Not what the news says, not what the headlines are saying, right, but where teams are actually at. And what we found was really interesting. There is still a significant gap between the enthusiasm around AI and what's really happening on the ground. So you can see some of those stats on the screen here. 63% of finance teams are exploring AI, which is really exciting, but only 16% are actively using it. And on top of that, 34% of organizations are running on completely manual processes, which is true. It's surprising to hear, but it's true. So these stats are really telling about the state of AI in accounting, and we're going to be referencing this data a lot in our conversation today. So enough about me talking here. Let's talk to our panelists. So one of the things that we had predicted was that companies would be moving away from these multi-system setups to more unified platforms, right? The concept of the great rebundling that we've talked about before. And the survey found that only 23% of organizations have all of their financial data in one system, and 34% cite integration complexity as a top barrier to AI. So team, are we going to be seeing more people moving toward happening? And why does this matter in the world of AI and automation? And Ben, I'd love to start with you on this one.
You made a good point. I think conversations are shifting. It used to be, we need better reporting, visibility, we need to reduce manual entry. Now it's increasingly, we need AI. I think it's important we understand why this is being said. Most of the time, it leads back to data being in the wrong places. But here's something we're also seeing: companies rushing towards AI without really understanding what problem they're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
AI for the sake of AI isn't really always what's best. I believe the right approach is to start with your core operational problems. Where is your team losing time? Where are errors creeping in? Where does the data not add up? And then ask whether AI is actually the right solution or whether a cleaner process, maybe automation, would get you there faster. I think regardless, I'm convinced that a unified platform is step number one. In one of Accountancy's latest surveys, we asked what's blocking AI adoption. 30% said they simply don't know how AI could be used in their business. I think 30% is pretty large to be saying that, which is more of a strategy issue than a tech issue. And buying AI tools before you've answered that question is how you end up with a ton of shelfware and a ton of software. The smarter companies we're talking to are using AI interest as a prompt to audit their whole tech stack and ask what actually needs to be fixed first. What's holding other companies back is usually the sunk cost. They've built processes around their current setup and their current processes, and switching costs feels high and taxing on their team. This changes when they realize the cost of staying is just as high as the cost of moving, especially if they want to be in a position to use AI effectively down the road. Mary, I'm going to toss to you. What do you think?
Yeah, and let me first apologize if you hear the gardener across the street. I'm going to do the best I can to speak over all that noise that's going on. So very good points, Ben, and I like the what you said about the agents and being ready and understanding what problem that you want to solve. You've got a lot of technology at your fingertips right now today. We have it. We just have to figure out, okay, what are the tasks that I do throughout the day and what can these agents help me do, right? But we all know that we have to train them, right? We have to help them understand what it is we do and kind of build a role for each of these agents that we're using, give them good instruction and give them access to our data, right? But now let's talk about data being spread across systems. The problem doesn't change. It could get worse, actually, right? So we've always talked about your data needs to be cleansed. It needs to be mapped. It needs to be harmonized. We've got agents that can work across systems, absolutely, but the risk of error is higher. If there's a conflict, is that agent going to know which data is the good data? You know, it used to be the human in there resolving this, and now you have agents, and now you have to make sure that the agents understand how to resolve the data, but they're not going to know, right? They're not going to know which data is the good data. So you've all heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out, right? Bottom line, if it's bad data and the data is spread across systems and it doesn't know how to harmonize it, then you're going to get bad output. It's not going to be reliable. So stakeholders today, as always, want real-time and reliable data. And it's so much easier when all that data is on one platform.
Yeah, great points, guys. It's like you can't build the house on a cracked foundation, right?
No.
Start with the foundation to make a lot of this new technology, especially AI, work in the right way. So thank you guys for sharing that. Appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit about like AI in practice too. So one of the things that we predicted was that AI would make automation smarter, and agentic AI, right, would be handling a lot of these targeted financial tasks. And the survey found that among those teams that are already using AI, the top use cases are automating processes, generating reports, and answering a lot of questions about their data. But only 20% are using it for forecasting, even though 40% of respondents say that's what they want the most. I found that really interesting. So Mary, I want to start with you here. Why do you think there is such a gap between what people want to use AI for, what they want it to do, and what they're actually using it for today?
I think it's still a matter of, trust and a matter of that curiosity that we all need to kind of, get into it and start using it. It's amazing. And I'll tell you my own personal path. Going through and picking up these tools and using them, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I can, polish up an email, right? Or I can have it do research for me. And I was quite pleased with the results. You know, you still had to review it and you kind of had to train it. And I had my model, you know, my ChatGPT working quite well for me. And then, you know, I was told I had to move to Claude, you know, and I'm like, no, I can't leave behind that one. I just had it so well trained, but I picked up Claude and just seeing, just working with it and seeing this technology and seeing what it could do, comparing what it can do today to what it was able to do a year ago. You know, we're all accountants. We've got to have 100% accuracy. We've got to have those numbers perfect, right? And so we saw a lot of hallucination, and people are reading about the hallucinations. They're like, the accountants, especially the finance people, are like, whoa, you know, well, what can we do with this if it's going to hallucinate? But what I would say is try it now, because it is here. It's not like it's coming, okay? It is here. So use it. You have tools now, but be careful about the tools and the data you're putting into it. Because depending upon if you're using ChatGPT, the plan you have, you want to make sure if you're putting business data in it that it's secure. So have the right plan, or, you know, remove headers from files so that it doesn't know, you know, what company this data belongs to, that sort of thing. But start using it, and not just to polish up an email, not just to do research or go shopping for you, okay? What you want to do is use it for a real task. And I'll just take myself for an example. I, you know, write requirements, right, for software. So it's a matter of, okay, you know, I can write the requirements and have AI audit those requirements for me. Sure, that works out. But how long did I spend writing the requirements? If you can train it and you have the right information to train it with, it can do it, and it's absolutely amazing. What we're able to do today, just in our own business here, and everyone can do this in finance. They just need to start with one task. One task that you do. You come in the morning, you have your cup of coffee. What's the first thing you do? If it's email, forget it. You know, we've moved beyond email, right? So have it perform a task that you do. Once you do that first task, that first, you're going to be amazed. Your mind is going to be blown by what these agents can do for you, and that's going to get you going. So, Ben, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, you know, there's a lot. I think, Shannon, something interesting that you said was that AI, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of people who buy it, but they're using it in a way that's not necessarily exactly what they had intended or had hoped to be using it for. And I think there's a lot of AI out there. There's a lot of people trying to pitch AI. There's a lot of softwares that are developing AI. And I think, just to simply put it, you need to be very strategic about what sort of AI and what kind of goal the AI is achieving that you want to purchase and to start using. So just being cautious and wary of that is always a good thing. And I think that really starts at the root and the strategy of the team. Operationally, what do we want to be using AI for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think sometimes, you know, you as the accountant are really the one to spearhead that. We've seen a lot of circumstances where somebody senior leadership sees what's happening in the market and they're saying, okay, we need to do AI, let's use AI. And that's all the direction that you get, right? And that can be overwhelming, like how do I actually make this happen? So kind of like you both were alluding to, picking a specific area, specific question, like starting small, testing and iterating. And once you do that and you start to see the success there, it kind of creates a path to where you can utilize AI and even some more advanced automations, right, in other areas of your business.
Yep.
Absolutely. I read recently how more and more finance people are moving into operations. So it's not after the fact like we are accustomed to, right, Ben? I mean, we're accustomed to, okay, the reporting comes through and we're looking at it after the fact, but they're getting involved at the front end, as they should be, because they can add value at the front end and not just do the historical reporting. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I want to get a poll up on the screen here. We want to hear from our attendees. Where do you guys stand on the AI readiness spectrum that we're talking through today? Are things still mostly manual for you? Maybe you've automated some processes but haven't started AI, you're just still exploring it. Maybe you have some AI tools and you're experimenting with that in a few areas like we just talked about. Or maybe you're like, Shannon, I'm on it. We are actively using AI in so many different areas of our finance workflows in our business. Really curious to hear from you guys and what's happening in your world as it comes to AI. I see some responses coming through. We'll leave that up for just a few more seconds. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and close that out and show some of those results. See what we got. Okay, so wow, 57% say that we're experimenting with AI. I love it. You guys are in the right place, and we love to see that some folks are actually taking AI, using it, iterating, and using more of it. That's awesome. All right, that leads into my next question. So in the trends piece, we talked a lot about AP. We talked about the collections agent. We talked about AP automation specifically. And our survey found that 31% of organizations have automated accounts payable, which is great, but 29% haven't automated a single process, so like fully manual. So Ben, I want to hear from you first. When you're demoing some of these capabilities, what is the reaction like? Like, are clients seeing AI as something for now, or are a lot of people like, no, this is great, but this feels someday, I want to wait until this is, proved out more? What's the reaction?
Yeah, I think the reaction is generally split into two different parties. One is, customers who already have automation, maybe with AP and other processes. They look at an agent and some of what the AI agents can do and say, like, when can we get on that? When can we start this? And then the other pack is really still in manual effort, manual processes, haven't really automated much, and say that's probably a year or two or three out. Not really, looking to start with AI. We can barely do a lot of our tasks now through automation. So I think the gap between those two groups is really significant. And it really comes down to the foundation. I think the companies that are more ready to be using AI have kind of taken advantage of automation over the last several years to kind of get ahead that way. And so I think one thing to think about is we find to be the most impactful that the use case that addresses real pain is really important. So like looking at your process and saying, okay, chasing down overdue invoices is really what's bottlenecking us right now, or catching up with duplicate bills. And when the goal of AI stops being abstract and high level and starts being targeted at these things, this agent would save me 10 hours a week. That timeline to ultimately get on the AI train will accelerate. But I think this poll, what we just ran in the group today, 29% of this group hasn't automated anything. I think the 14% of we have some automation but not AI ready versus like the 50% that are using AI in some form or fashion. That to me is like, let's get back to the basics of the conversation, really understand, is it an AI conversation to have, or is it a automation and processes operations type of conversation? So there's a clear path forward there, and I think it might just mean you're earlier in that process.
Yeah, and those are good points, Ben. People may not know what is AI versus what's automation, but the goal is the same, right? To fully automate. And AP automation, AP is one area, but it's really, you can look across all of your accounting and say, I would say 95% of it can be automated, whether you use AI or not. I think probably in many of those areas you are going to be using AI, but the fact of the matter is you can automate the business, so you can start doing other things. But let's focus on just AP automation, right? Companies spend so much time paying bills. It's just a fact, companies have bills to pay. And they're spending a lot of time doing that. So when they see, Ben, your demos of how the entire process can be automated from beginning to end, that's when they get it. You can talk about automation all day long, but when you see it in action, that's when people really get it. So you have to be able to step back and imagine this world where everything just gets recorded for you. You're brought in at certain points to review and approve, because we all need humans. We cannot let these agents or automation run wild. It's not the wild, wild west in accounting, right? It never will be. We need that internal control. But you let the automation do the rest. You are, approving when the invoice is coming in, or you're having the department head or whoever's responsible for that bill approve it. When you create, or when a batch of proposed payments maybe is created for you by this AI or automation, then you are deciding. Then you have someone else. You look at the segregation of duties. Maybe, if it's agents, you have a separate agent. You still want segregation of duties between these agents. So you have maybe another agent looking at that in Treasury, right, and deciding, is this good, or do I want to pay more? Do I want to pay less? You're always in the loop, right? So it's really about trust. Can I trust it if it's like 95% automated? And I'm saying yes, because these agents are just like staff that you have. This automation is just like your staff, and just like the staff you have. Of course, you're going to trust them, but verify, or at each point, you're going to have those internal controls to review and to approve. Okay, so you want the transparency. You want to be inserted into that internal process, and you're going to be making sure that the bills get paid, and they're legit bills, and they're legit vendors, and they get paid at the proper time. We're always going to have those internal controls, but the rest of it can all be done automatically for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm laughing because somebody in the Q&A just quoted you saying it's not the wild, wild west in accounting, LOL.
It never will be.
Crazy here, right? We still need people. Okay?
Right.
Which is actually, this is a great lead into the next question I had for you guys, kind of around the fear of AI. The survey found that 35% of finance teams cite fear of AI errors and hallucinations as a top barrier to using it. But when we talked to Salesforce admins, IT admins, only 11% of those folks shared that same concern. So what does that gap between those two roles tell us? And how do we think about building trust in AI outputs for the people that are actually doing this work, doing the accounting work? Mary, I'd love to start with this one, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll tell you again my own personal story. When I started using ChatGPT, initially started using it, and I saw the hallucinations, and I'm like, come on, stop making stuff up. And I actually said that back to ChatGPT, stop making stuff up. And it continued to make stuff up, and I'm like, I can't use this in accounting. I mean, this is just not going to work. Like I said before, accountants need 100% accuracy. But that was then, and this is now, and it hasn't been that long ago. Technology has been advancing at an exponential rate. So if you were like me and you tried it before and you saw all of that hallucination, try it now and try different models. I think Claude is fantastic for what we do. It's got more finance, trained on more finance now. So try it out now. Now you're still going to need to train it, right? You're still going to need to review it. I'll always say that you need humans. So our roles evolve into something different. And I'm sure that everyone has heard this. Instead of doing things, you're going to become reviewers. But I'm living this now, and I got a whole lot to review, I'm telling you. I'm able to do so much more, but that just means my work changes, right? Instead of doing, I'm reviewing, and we're going to get better at that, because we're going to start orchestrating some agents to help me review. I'm still going to be in the process, but I want to catch more before I'm the final reviewer and have to review the work. And you can do that as well. These agents, you are going to learn if you get in there and you have it start performing tasks for you, they are going to be some key staff for you. They're going to be able to get a lot done, and they can get a lot done in parallel. So think about that. They're fast. They can do work in parallel. Think about what that's going to do for your business. So, once again, you get AI, you get your agents helping you with your workflows. You let it perform the tasks. You always insert yourself in the process to review and approve that work. And, you're going to discover, how quickly your role is going to be evolving and how much more valuable you will be to your business. You're really going to make yourself indispensable to that business that you work for in doing so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just something I would add based on IT teams versus more of a finance team role. I think that IT teams are way more up to speed with AI. I think they've seen it grow from, its core in the beginning all the way to what it is now. So they're way less concerned. They're under the hood. They kind of know what's coming. I think the finance team is really where we need to get them more involved with AI. I think they need to have a better understanding of what it is, what it's achieving. Maybe pulling back some curtains, get a little technical, not all the way technical, but understanding a little bit of it will go a long way, in my opinion. And I think if we can get, the finance teams up to speed, it'll just put everyone on the same playing field. It'll allow for better strategy and tech development.
Yeah, it's a good point, Ben. I think the relationships between finance and IT or Salesforce admin, if you're using Salesforce, have to get stronger. Because, to your point, IT is probably less concerned because they have been in this, from the get-go. And Mary, your whole story too of just diving in with ChatGPT and just trying it. And I think you're also probably at the level that you're at now because you took that step early on and just said, I'm just going to dive in, learn, try. You were kind of thinking like an IT ops mind, like you approached it in that way. And so it'd be great to see more of our finance folks really stepping in and doing that as well. Yeah, it's great. Great thoughts, guys. So speaking of, the human side of things, I have a question in regards to that. One of the things that we predicted was that smaller teams would start to shoulder more strategic responsibility, right? And that upskilling would become a baseline expectation. And the survey actually found that 84% of finance professionals still spend at least 25% of their time on manual processes, on manual tasks. And Mary, you had mentioned in the article that the people that remain will be spending less time on historical reporting and looking back and more time looking forward. So are we seeing that shift start, or do we feel like people are still buried in the day-to-day, and how can we, support them? Ben, I'd love to start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think, I'm talking to customers all the time, and I think something that's really up front with these accounting teams is that they're very much still buried in the day-to-day, and there's so much manual work still being done. I think they say, paving the cow's path, it's just like a lot of the old processes they're used to, and it's really hard to imagine not doing that any longer, especially if it works. And so I think accountants are pretty hard-headed, to be honest, in a very good way. I would say the teams that are moving towards more strategic work on the finance teams are the ones who are automating their processes earlier. They've probably already done a lot of that, but they're buying time to look up from a spreadsheet and to look more at business strategy. They're not as involved in doing the spreadsheet and manual work that's consuming 50% of their time. And I think that's preventing them from implementing things and getting things moving that would free them from these manual tasks. I'd also say that the accountants are some of the smartest people. I mean, accounting is the language of business. They understand a lot of what's happening in your business, and they should have a seat in the strategy room.
Yeah.
Right. And I found, just as you mentioned, Ben, again, I had that same personal experience. I was just had so much work to do and I was buried in it that I didn't have, enough time. I felt like I didn't have enough time to explore more of what these agents could do. But this wasn't getting any easier. I kept getting more work and more work and more work. And finally, I had to step back and say, okay, all of this needs to get done. It's all high priority. It's all critical. It's all important. All of this needs to get done. How am I going to get done more with what I have, with the staff that we have? And I realized that there was no going back there. There's no continuing how I would do things, up until now, like last year or the year before. I had to make a change. So I had to make an investment. I had to carve out some time to work on this and really explore and be curious and see what it could do. And it was just, that's unbelievable. I cannot believe how roles can evolve so quickly when you do, right? And being close to the CPA community, I can tell you, CPAs have been out there. They were out there from the very beginning. The big four firms led the way to AI adoption, investing early. They're now using AI in audit and in other areas. They've built their own models. It's not just big firms, it's smaller firms as well. Embrace AI for tax advisory. I mean, I've seen it. I've been monitoring some companies, and legal is another one, right? I mean, it's just perfect for those kinds of scenarios. Small businesses probably are going to be resistant. Why? Because they're still buried in the day-to-day and they don't have time, like I was describing. They don't have the time to invest. But we are in that transitional phase right now. We truly are. We're seeing people take small steps. I think you're going to feel the pressure more and more every day to compete. Those small businesses have to compete. And to be able to compete, they're going to have to get in here and really start adopting this technology. The people thriving are the ones with curiosity. All right, curiosity is hugely important. So don't wait for someone to figure it out for you, right? Get busy, learn what AI can do for you, explore it, figure out what it can do for you in your day-to-day tasks. And like I said before, it's going to make you indispensable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes those smaller companies, growing companies, there's less red tape. So you have more of the opportunity to test out this stuff and actually dive in and learn and make a real impact. And you can see kind of the fingerprints of your work that you've done at your organization. So it's also something to keep in mind, right? Like, it's not just these big enterprises that are doing all this cool AI stuff. Like, the growing companies are the ones, I think, in my opinion, that are more poised for that kind of success and this kind of work.
Right.
That's great. Awesome. I got a couple more questions for you guys before we get into the Q&A. So I want to talk about some of the things that maybe surprised us that we're seeing already change this year. So what is one thing from the survey data or even from your own conversations you guys have had this quarter that surprised you or changed how you're thinking about one of the trends that we predicted earlier?
Yeah, I'll say it again. What surprises me is that low adoption, right? Why people are not in it today. So at Accounting Seed, Ben, Shannon, we're in it every day. We're utilizing this technology. We're benefiting from its capabilities. We're expanding our capacity. We're able to do more. We're changing the way we work. We're evolving our roles. For anybody not using AI, fighting it, maybe wanting things to remain the same because people are very comfortable just keeping things the way they are, right? You're too busy, maybe you feel you're too busy to try it out. At the end of the day, you're going to be left behind. Your business isn't going to be able to compete and you won't have the skills that you need to thrive in this new world. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I think what's not shocking is how ineffective it is at the moment. I think, there's a lot there's a lot of people who haven't adopted, like you're saying, Mary. I think there's also a lot who have adopted, and it's not working as effectively as they had hoped to. I would say that one prediction for me is that companies are going to hit a wall with buying software, especially AI tools, and they're, whether or not they like it, they're going to have to assess their own problems, their own operational processes. I would strongly suggest just starting there. Just start from a good foundation, get your operational understanding up to T, so that you can then strike exactly at which AI is going to be most effective for your company. But a prediction for me would, of course, be companies are going to have to reanalyze how to use AI.
That's a good point. So a similar question, but a different way to think about this. If you had to update one of our 10 predictions based on what you're seeing now, what would it be and why?
A good one, Mary. You want to start?
Yeah, so I looked through those predictions and I picked one out. Upskilling will become a baseline expectation. So think about that. Now you're going to be, people are going to assume that you have this skill. And what I will say about this prediction is it's already happening, right? Try looking for finance jobs right now. Go out there, search the jobs for accounting and finance people. Take a look at what you're seeing in the job description. I listed 3 here. I have 3 that I'm going to share with you that I saw in some finance and accounting positions. One, it says requires 3+ years designing and delivering generative AI solutions. 3+ years. I went back and I said, when was ChatGPT released? And it was November 30, 2022. Okay, so do the math. We can all, finance people, we can all do the math, right? They're looking for someone that was curious enough at the beginning, when this all started, happening, when ChatGPT was released. They want someone with skills, and they're looking for someone that has been involved in this AI transformation from the beginning. Another one said, experience in integrating AI automation into financial and operational workflows. Okay, if you haven't done this yet, you're not going to be, looked at as a good candidate for that position. Another one, deep understanding of AI technologies. This is what you're going to see more and more and more. These are real positions. I just did a quick search, and that's what I found. So, the update to the prediction is it's not going to become a baseline expectation. It already has become a baseline expectation.
Good one, Mary. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I think the one that really stood out to me was smaller teams will shoulder greater strategic responsibility. I think my update to this is that it's proving to be absolutely true. I think one, the number of, in the article, I think what's really important to note out is that the number of CPA exam candidates is dropping. The number of individuals going into the Big Four is dropping. The Big Four are adjusting for these changes. And I think because of that, really, one, the accounting profession is changing dramatically, but it's also going to demand that teams of smaller capacity really shoulder the strategic responsibility. I think we see that on an accounting team. But then also I see, like, within our own company, it's really small teams that get together are the ones that can move the envelope further. I think that's just generally true. And I think with AI specifically, taking on a lot of manual tasks that kind of increase the number of people who needed to do something, it's going to limit, or it's going to take away some of that manual effort and allow for smaller groups to impact G.
That's great. Thank you both for sharing. Thank you guys for this conversation. This was so great. And I think the big theme that we keep going back to is that none of this is as simple as just go buy AI and do it. Like, there are a lot of foundational work that has to happen for AI to really work for you. Some of that unglamorous work, right? But the ones that are doing that now, that are building the foundation, they're getting the right platform, they're looking at their processes, they're testing AI and they're iterating, those are the ones that are going to be in the best position, that are going to be successful, 6 months to a year from now, right? So I want to make sure, I know we're getting close on time and we've got a few questions that have come in. So let's take some of these. Okay, it's a good one. So this first one, I have done the what problems need to be solved work, and I do see AI as a solution for some of these. How do you make the internal business case for AI investment when leadership is skeptical or other priorities keep taking over? This is my experience. I'm unsure on how to approach this conversation given where we are at as a company. Mary, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so you definitely want to build a case, to influence the leadership. And in that case, it's really showing them, demonstrating to them what this can do, right? And you really, I mean, if you look at your job, you look at what you're doing, all of these tasks, and maybe you put numbers behind it to say, okay, here's what each person does today, right? And here's how long it takes us. And then at month-end close, here's how long it takes to close. Now, if we brought in and started creating these agents to help us doing all this work parallelly, like I was explaining before, here's how this can improve our ability to deliver more quickly. And what is the result of that? What is the value of each team member being able to deliver more quickly all of this work, or having agents take over and do all of this work? That's going to free up the team. What are you going to spend the time doing, right? You're going to start moving and evolving these roles to do more front-end work. Look at the operations. Look at how you can improve. Maybe get more involved in pricing. Whatever it is in your business, take a look at that and think about the value that is going to give your business. And you build a case for it. And I mean, it's like, for the cost, relatively low cost, it's going to take, just from a price perspective to get the tools, right? And then the low investment, I don't think it's a huge investment. It is an investment in time. You are going to have to invest in getting everything moving, but just the value that you're going to be adding to the business, as long as you can demonstrate that in the business case, it's going to be a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this person mentioned other priorities taking over. I mean, can AI help with some of those priorities, what those priorities are? That's another thing as well. There's probably some ways that an AI solution can not even just help the accounting and finance function, right, but other departments as a whole.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if I could just add really quickly too, I think a good business case is really assessing actual statistics of your current processes that are impactful enough to almost demand AI. Think about the number of hours spent a week on an individual task, the percent of time that's spent on that one individual task through the week, and then start to put that time to actual dollar value. Look at the amount of time and effort and the actual dollar values being impacted by those manual efforts, and what could be saved. I think there's an analysis that needs to be done there internally prior to bringing that up. It's a little bit of work, but I think it'll go a long way.
Mm-hmm. Great points, guys. Let's take one more. And I love the honesty of this question. So this person said, I have to admit that I'm getting really tired of hearing about AI constantly. It all just feels buzzwordy. As a software solution yourselves, how do you guys know when a vendor is delivering real AI value and capability versus just using it as a buzzword? What's been Accounting Seed's approach here?
Yeah, I think for me, I think you're totally right. I think AI is a trend, but it's becoming less trendy. I think it's less fun to hear, fun to use, and it's fun to use, fun to use ineffectively. I think it's important when you're assessing AI, vendors should be able to effectively communicate their value of an AI tool and objectives or achievements of their AI almost make them prove that their AI is actually going to be impactful for your business. Having a checklist of items, I think Accounting Seed's AI usage has practical impacts on the accounting processes of the customer. We demo it all the time, and it's actual processes that accounting teams face. And so I would just, go ahead and look at it, but then also question it, be almost a detective in your process of assessing vendors.
Yeah, I like that, Ben, being a detective, because that's exactly what I would do. Walking in, again, you may not know the difference between, well, what is AI doing versus what is an automated process, right? But you shouldn't have to know, because when you're looking at a vendor tool and assessing it, you just want to make sure, I would walk in and say, okay, what have you automated for me? I don't care if you've used AI or not. What have you automated for me? And it'll become clear where they've used AI. Like if you're automating an invoice, being created automatically from a vendor, sending you a digital invoice, right? You got to be using AI at some point to determine how that invoice is being coded, right? I mean, you can't have automated processes doing this. So it might become clear, but even if it doesn't, look at the value, look at what you're trying to accomplish, and just go on that. And of course, you can ask the question, where's your AI? And they can point out all these different places, but really, I don't know that it's the right question to ask. It's just, what value am I getting from your tool, right? What are you going to help me do? And knowing the future, what we're all saying, over time, you're going to have 95%, hopefully, automated in your business. Look at what each vendor can do for you today to reach that goal.
Yeah. Great thoughts, guys. Thank you. I know we could keep going, but I want to be respectful of time. So just want to bring us home and close us out here today. I think the survey results really reinforced something that we believe pretty strongly here at Accounting Seed, and it's that the organizations that are gonna win with AI are not necessarily the ones doing it the fastest and putting it in everything right away, right? They're the ones that are building the foundation first, unified data, clean processes, the right platform. They're testing, iterating, and actually proving out real use cases for where AI can solve real problems at their business, right? So to close us out, I just want to share some more insights that you can get from us. Again, we've got that trends piece that we put in the chat. Make sure to use that at your disposal. We also have the State of AI industry report that you can download and have access to. We also have tons of other resources around this stuff on our website. So you can go to accountingseed.com. Under resources, we've got other webinars, white papers, blogs, checklists you guys can check out just to help you continue doing research and being those detectives, right, in this process, in this world of AI. So with that, Ben, Mary, thank you guys so much for a fabulous conversation today. And thank you all for being with us today and spending part of your day here. So until next time, thanks so much and have a great day.
Thanks, team.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.